For our video, we're going around to different areas within the greater GTA and interviewing different demographics of people to determine their opinions regarding the Toronto Community Housing Commission. So do you know what subsidized housing is?
Subsidized housing is like government housing.
Yeah. And have you heard about the recent drama on the news with the whole situation and money spending?
A couple of my friends live in subsidized housing, so yeah, I have heard about it. I heard that they were using renovations, the money for subsidized housing, the renovations for it.
Yeah.
They were using it for Christmas parties and pools and stuff for office renovations.
Yeah.
So they were using it for their own personal use.
Form of housing that the government will partially pay for.
Yes. Do you guys know anyone who lives in subsidizing right now?
Yeah, up in Aurora. They should be spending it towards the housing rather than items that the household needs rather than...
Sure.
Yeah, so it's a need rather than a want.
I'm not very familiar with it,
Yeah.
but what I believe is that the government shouldn't be spending money on people who actually can afford a home or afford to pay a rent. Right? They should be spending it on people who actually are in need, like people in the streets. Toronto's actually suffering from a lot of poverty recently. Like there's been a lot of poor families, and you actually see them down the streets, and they should honestly just support them because at the same time it's bad for our economy, for tourists to see such things.
Yes, definitely.
And as a hospitality student, I believe that we should be able to support all sorts of people.
Okay, as you see here, this particular facility here allows for people who are in subsidized housing or homeless to come in and purchase meals, coffees at a small price. But what is that price really to people who are not making any money and living off of government checks? It's still very expensive for that $2 sandwich. They're not able to afford it, so they're not giving them that much of an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's full of bed bugs.
Bed bugs, yes.
Lots of them. But everything it's raked. They couldn't care less, but they want the rent every month.
Yep. Yeah. They want the rent, but they aren't willing to do what it takes to make it livable.
Exactly, yes. But I have to move out of there because there's a crack of cocaine. It's a crack of cocaine building across the street.
And what does this facility provide for you?
Well, it's a drop-in, and they have meals. Everybody could come in and have a lunch.
But you still have to pay for it?
No, it's free, but it's in the morning. They're having in the morning at 7:30. Yeah.
Hi.
As a survey.
I know they're going up for a lot of re-elections, and I guess government housing is one topic.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem with it. People need a place to live. So,
Right.
I think it's perfectly fine.
But the government's spending the money that they're supposed to be doing for government housing on like bonuses and Christmas presents and stuff like
that's
that.
unacceptable. Clearly, people need a place to live. So without that, towards government housing, people end up on the streets or maybe even worse.
Yeah.
So clearly, you need a place for people to stay. And Christmas bonuses aren't the way to go.
So how do you feel about government housing? Like, are you aware of it? Do you know anyone who lives in government housing?
Yeah, if done properly, I think it helps most of our citizens who can't afford houses. But
Yeah.
again, if done properly.
Yeah.
Right. Are you aware that the government's been spending their money on bonuses and like Christmas presents and stuff for the workers? They're not really putting it towards government housing at all, and there's people living in broken houses and no repairs or anything like that.
I didn't know that, but I'm sure it's correct.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Definitely is correct.
What's your take on that?
Well, when dealing with something like government housing, where it's either you have it or you don't, I'm not sure people are really going to complain until someone probably brings it up who's higher up than we are. So I think we're just going to go along with it until there's a whistleblower.
Yeah.
The moment there's a whistleblower, I'm sure they probably won't do anything about it. It's our taxes that pay that, right?
Exactly.
And then it not only is it not going to them, which we already pay high enough taxes for anyway, but it's not even 100% going towards them. Like, that's ridiculous.
Well, look at, I left my place full of bed bugs.
Yeah.
Bit chewed up by bed bugs. 6 months I've been begging them to come clean it, so I left. in the street now.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. How it's just not.
So you sleep outside around here because it
Yeah.
wasn't handled
Yeah.
properly?
No money, nothing.
Are you familiar with what's been going on about how the money has been delegated improperly?
No.
How they have the budget to keep up with maintenance and everything
They're
in
just
the
not
in the
doing
apartments, and instead
They're
of
not
doing
it.
that,
They're not
No,
doing
they're not.
anything.
they're misspending it and using it for the employees in the head office and things
That's
like
right.
that,
That's right.
rather than helping out the people who
I
really
just
need
lived
it.
over here across from the restaurant. It's a housing project. It used to be a crack house, and now they're using. They're not. It's not even clean. It's unfit to even live in. They're
Wow.
using toilet water. The toilet's hooked up to the laundry, so that's where the it just
Yeah.
recycles. Who wants to wash your clothes in that shit?
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
See, they have the money to do it. They're just not doing it.
Well, they should be spending it wisely, and
Yeah.
they're not.
No, they're not.
They're not.
How do you feel about the government?
How do I feel about the government right
Yeah.
now? I wish they would be spending more money on people that are homeless on the street.
Yeah.
You know, and walking downtown Toronto, I see it every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's, I think, well, what's
There
that,
needs
what's that
to be
commercial?
a none of the above section when you're voting.
Provide medical care to people who are marginalized, to people who are homeless, or people who are staying in the shelter. People can come on the bus and get some supplies like socks and condoms, and safe crack kits, and toothpaste and things like that. And then there's also always a nurse on board, like I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
So if they have a medical problem, they can come in and I can do some foot care or wound care or things like that. Or I can refer them to a doctor.
Okay.
Because we realize that there's a lot of people who live on the streets who don't have a healthcare provider. So we try to connect them with healthcare providers.
Okay.
So here you find usually a lot of actual homeless people when they're not able to stay somewhere. You can see the areas where they stay. There's quite a bit of a stench, and they don't have any other choice because they're not allowed on actual streets. So you can see this is an area where they sometimes gather.